January last year, I was a wanted man, and I didn't know because the police had put my image online on a London website for wanted people, criminals that were being looked for. And
Speak a little closer.
sorry, and so I'm really nervous. I start talking about it, and the nerves come back because it's all coming back. What happened to me a year ago. So I knew nothing about that until I went to bed the 4th of February 2015 and woke up with 6 police at my door asking to come in. They wouldn't tell me what it was about until I let them in. And when they came in, they started looking around where I live. They were looking for evidence, and I said, "What are you looking for?" And they said, "Well, you're going to be arrested for sexual assault." And it was like I was still asleep. This was 6:30 in the morning, and your whole world just changes. It's like, I described it as Kafkaesque because it was. I woke up one morning and I was turned into a monster, a sex pervert, a sex offender, and there was nothing I could do to argue with them at that point. They just took me to the police station to be processed, DNA, stuck in a cell for 3 hours, and then interviewed. And I can't put into words how that feels to have the whole state against you at that point, and there's no way you can cope with that because you don't know what you're being accused of. I wasn't told exactly what it was that I'd done. I was told that it was a sexual assault, and that was it. So I said, well, what are we talking about? Rape? Did I rape somebody in the middle of Waterloo Station? Then finally at the interview, I had to wait for 3 hours for the duty solicitor to arrive. And sorry, it's coming back.
Deep breath.
Yeah, sorry. So I was advised by the duty solicitor I had 3 options. I could either say nothing, just no comment to every question, or I could be totally cooperative, or I could write a statement and then just hand that to the police. But because I knew I hadn't done anything, I just wanted to be cooperative. You would in that situation. You just want to say what happened and hope that, I assumed it must have been a mistake. It was either mistaken identity. The problem was they would only show me one blurry CCTV image of me, which I presume it was me. You couldn't really say for 100% certain. So that's all I could say. That I think it's me in that image, but I definitely didn't assault a woman. Why would I do that? I was on my way home from work. I go there 3 or 4 times a week, and I just walk straight through and go home. And that was it. So I just left it at that. I was released on bail, and that continued until June, when I was charged. And that was a nightmare. That was the worst day, because you assume that stupidly, I just feel so stupid that I trusted the police to do their job, to collate the evidence, give that to the CPS, and realise that what she was saying didn't fit with the CCTV images. Although at the time I hadn't seen the CCTV, I didn't actually see those images until August. So that was 6 months after I was arrested. And at the same time, then I confirmed it was me because it was obvious it was me. And at the same time, we watched what they call an ABE, which is her statement to the police. It's like a video statement. And I'll read you a few of the things she said. So she says, "I was wearing a black top which goes down to my knees. It's made of sort of t-shirt material. I was wearing black trousers, Reebok legging trousers for yoga. The fingers went into it, pushed my knickers and my trousers into me. It literally was straight up my skirt and into me. There was no trying to get at my knickers or anything like that." And then the investigating officer says, "How long did it take?" "I don't know that, 2 or 3 seconds, I would have thought. He was straight up and then straight out again." It was so accurate that this isn't the first time. There was no fumbling. This was very practiced. Did you feel any pain? No. I couldn't see him at the point of it happening, in the sense that he was at the side of me. I didn't even feel his hand going up my legs or up my skirt or anything. It was just straight up. And then she goes on to talk. She also said that I bashed her or hit her or punched her. I'm not quite sure. Then the investigating officer talks about the bash. Did the bash make you disbalanced? Yeah, he was so much taller than me. She said I was 6'2". I'm actually 5'9". He was so much taller than me, it couldn't have been his shoulder. It was like punching someone. It was a big blow. I've never been hit like that before. I mean, I have been hit before, but not like that. It was so hard, I staggered and yelled, and my yell must have been pretty loud because people just stopped all around me. It knocked me 45 degrees to the left. I don't know if I was knocked against the wall. If you're a person who wants to sexually assault someone, you don't stop to belt them on, do you? I mean, you can see from the images that nobody stopped. You know, it was a continuous line of people. The thump, whatever it was that happened here, it was a very vicious blow. I don't have any bruising or anything like that. It knocked this big yell out of me, and it was such a big yell that quite a few people stopped around us. Now, I'm assuming most of you have seen the CCTV images. If you look at them, nobody stops, nobody looks. There's one woman kind of vaguely looking in my direction, but if she'd yelled, she would have been looking in her direction and not my direction. So it's just patently not true what she's saying. And I don't think she was even assaulted by anybody. I mean, I wasn't picked out by her. She actually didn't pick me out from the CCTV. That was the police. They were looking for a perpetrator, obviously. And I think the only person they could trace was me because I had an Oyster card. There was a guy behind me, and he just as much fitted the description that she gave. When we were in court, she said the guy who assaulted her had hair. She didn't even recognise herself in the CCTV. She was shown an image of herself, and she said, I don't wear boots like that. And the judge pointed out that the bag was hers, and she said, oh yeah, it must be me. So I don't know whether she was trying to wriggle out of it or what. So June I was charged, and we managed to get hold of the CCTV footage by August. And once I saw that, I knew it was me in there. But me and my solicitor just peered at it for ages, trying to work out what exactly the crime was that was happening in the images. For those who don't know, that it's not a continuous footage as such. It's not like a video footage. It's just a series of images, still images, one every second. And the camera in Waterloo just takes one every second. And I'll come to that later, because just before the trial, we found out that that had been manipulated. So we had that analysed by an expert at Warwick University, a guy called Jacob Blythe, who was very good. He was very neutral. He didn't say anything that was biased. He just gave a description of what he saw in front of him. And he came to the conclusion that I had taken approximately, he said less than a second, but in court he said it was more like half a second to walk past this woman. And in his opinion, the sentence which he said straight up just doesn't fit at all with what the images show. So we gave that to the CPS to have another look, to see if we could get the case dropped. And a judge advised them to look at it and drop the case. But for some reason they decided not to, and they just pushed ahead. So then they set the trial date for February, this February. It was supposed to start on the 1st of February, but the judge decided to go on holiday on the first day, so they postponed it till the next day. On the 2nd of February, they couldn't find enough jurors, so we spent most of the day trying to find, we had 10 jurors, and by the end of the day, they'd managed to find 12, but the actual trial didn't start until the next day. In the morning of the Wednesday, the woman her AB video was shown to the jury, but she didn't attend court until lunchtime. She had the choice of talking on video camera rather than actually being in the court, but the judge asked her to be in the court. Although nobody in the court could see her, she was behind a curtain. I couldn't see her. My partner is deaf, so she lip reads, and she didn't know what was going on because she couldn't read the woman's lips. The jury, in the morning when they watched the ABE video, you could see that they were kind of taking in. I mean, after all, this woman is an actress. And when I first watched it, you know, I was quite convinced about what she was saying, but I knew it wasn't true even myself. So I could see why the jury watching that in the morning were kind of taken in. But by the time she came to the court and spoke, and the fact that she didn't even recognise herself in the CCTV, looked at an image of me and said, but the guy had hair, as if to say that's not him, you could see in the eyes of the jurors that they just realised it wasn't true. So by the Thursday, after all my character witnesses had spoken, it was too late to have a decision by the jury at the end of that day, so they postponed the verdict until the Friday, which is why I think it took slightly longer than normal. I think normally it would take about an hour, but it was 90 minutes to decide because they had to elect a foreman, foreperson, sorry. And after 90 minutes it was not guilty. So the not guilty verdict wasn't a brilliant moment for me. I mean, of course I was glad to be found not guilty, but you just feel numb. You expect something more. You're just told you can leave the court. That's it. No explanation of why you've been dragged that far. I mean, just the very fact that you go to trial kind of slants the case, because jurors assume that if it's got to trial, there must be something there. There must be something that they're not aware of or that the police are holding back. Oh, I forgot to mention, during the trial, the investigating officer withheld the statement of the first person that she spoke to about the so-called assault. She didn't mention sexual assault. She mentioned a push to the abdomen or the chest and didn't mention anything about sexual assault. So that was kind of an important piece of evidence that my solicitor asked the investigating officer and the prosecution if there were any statements like that. And for months he was told, no, there's nothing, we didn't speak to anyone. And that only came out when the officer in charge was in the witness box, and then he had to say there was a statement. And he spent about half an hour trying to find it. We had to adjourn so that I could read it with my solicitor. And we decided that it was more or less likely that I was going to get off anyway, so we just left it and just carried on. I made sure there was, Erin very kindly supported me throughout that year when I was first arrested. I spoke to Erin about 2 weeks after I was arrested. We have a mutual friend. I'm an artist. I nearly said I'm very good with my hands, but thank you. I restore picture frames in Twickenham, which is near to where Erin lives, so we had a mutual friend and she put me in touch with Erin straight away. I mean, I was aware of Erin as a person. I didn't really know what she did entirely, but I'd seen her on TV and stuff. So, but Erin's been a rock for me. She's been there right from the start. She explained to me why this was happening. When something like this happens to you, you're just confused because you know you haven't done anything, but you can't understand why the police and the CPS are pursuing this. You expect justice to be done. You don't understand why they would push to get a conviction on something that is patently not true. And anybody who's seen those images knows that nothing happened, which is why Erin suggested that we have a journalist at the trial. I was kind of worried that it would just disappear into the ether and then my name would be forever linked with a sexual assault and nobody would know exactly what happened. So Erin put me in touch with Ian Gallagher at the Mail. He was brilliant. He came every day to the trial. He was very friendly to me. He wasn't pushing it. My solicitor was a bit nervous that there was a journalist there because he was worried that it would reflect badly on him. He, in the end, was very pleased with what Ian wrote, and he even put it on his own website. I decided, after all the post-trial publicity, me and Erin went on TV to talk about it, and we went on local radio stations and spoke to lots of newspapers. I decided that was good for me because getting it out there means that if I ever apply for a job and people Google my name, Mark Pearson actress, it all comes up. You can see what happened. You can see that she was lying. We decided, me and my solicitor decided to write to Alison Saunders for an explanation. I mean, we knew she probably wouldn't reply. She's not that kind of person. I mean, most bullies are cowards, so she wouldn't respond probably. But we had to take that chance. We had to try. And it's very unusual for anyone to get a response from the CPS. They're a closed building. They don't talk to anyone. They don't explain. Their standard explanation for my trial was, we think there was sufficient evidence to take this to trial. We respect the decision of the jury. So she passed it on to a guy called Greg McGill, who's the head of legal services at the CPS. And he was okay, he was nice enough. He even apologised, not on behalf of the CPS, but in the sense of apologising that I'd had to go through this, which kind of helped, but didn't. Yeah. I suppose that's as far as he could go. His job was damage limitation, so he agreed to meet us just to try and stop us going further, I guess. And as Erin said, it was a fishing exercise. He wanted to know what we were going to do. So that was a dead end. I then personally wrote a letter to the area commander of the police, a guy called Martin Fry. That's not the ABC singer, it's a different guy. His response was nothing at all. He just sent me a very condescending letter about due process and the fact that my trial was due process and I should just get on with it and forget all about it. So now I'm in the situation of waiting to hear from my MP. My MP is Kate Hoey, who's obviously involved in a little referendum that's been going on in the last couple of weeks. So she's obviously busy, but she'll get back to me, and I need to pursue the CPS in the sense, it's really difficult to sue the CPS because for a lawyer or a barrister, it's career suicide. They're not going to do it because they have to work with the CPS in the future. So to find somebody is going to be very, very difficult. So I might be better off trying to take some sort of action against the police. Oh, I haven't talked about the CCTV. So just before the trial, I'd watched the CCTV DVD dozens of times to try and work out what was going on. But I hadn't noticed. My solicitor was the only one who noticed that the series of images are one every second, except for the three centre ones where I walk past her. They've been extended to one every 2 seconds. So it takes longer for them to move, and it gives the impression, if you watch the whole sequence, that I'm passing her for longer, twice as long as I was. So to all intents and purposes, it's trying to imply that I had more time to do whatever she suggested. The CPS, at first they told us that they didn't know who'd done that. And then they said it was for technical reasons, but they didn't explain what the technical reasons were. Then when I met Greg McGill, he said that it was probably the transport police that had altered it, and that was a usual thing that they do to give you more time to look at the images. So I'm still in the dark house about why they did that, and I want an answer to that. Lord Blencathra in the House of Lords asked 3 questions about that and wasn't given a decent answer. The Attorney General just waffled and covered his tracks and didn't give any explanation for that at all. So now I'm just in the position of waiting, and it's all very time consuming, and the longer I leave it, the more time there is for them to work out their own strategy of defense against whatever I can do against them. So also cost, it's going to cost a fortune to try and sue whoever. I was hoping that Cliff Richard might take out a class action against the CPS, which would be brilliant. I think it needs a group of people rather than a single individual to be more effective. I don't think they'll be stopped by one person. I think it needs to be a whole class of people. And the Facebook forum that me and Erin joined, it's a closed group for people that have been falsely accused. It's called accused.me. And when we first joined, Erin, there were about 60 people on there, I think. And now there's over 300. They have one or two people join every day. So these cases are just increasing exponentially. When I was in the dock, there was a guard sat next to me, and she said, I see more and more of these cases every week because word seems to have got round that you can make money from this. If you accuse somebody, you're going to get no repercussions, but chances are you'll get compensation, victim compensation, even if the person is found not guilty. So the actress that did this to me is quite probably going to get some sort of compensation as a victim. And they use the term victim in the CPS all over the place. When I went to see Greg McGill, we had to take him up on that and say, no, she's not a victim, I'm the victim. She's the complainant. And he was happy with that. He changed it. So I'm at a brick wall now. And the reason I just want to publicise this as much as possible is people don't know it's happening. I didn't know it was happening until it happened to me. I mean, I'm so happy that you people are supporting me because you know all about this already. You knew it was happening. There are millions of guys like me that don't know what's going on. We just end up hitting a brick wall one day and there's total confusion. I mean, I'm quite lucky in that it didn't destroy my life totally in the way that it has other people. I mean, the people on the Facebook forum, some of the stories are horrendous. Guys with nothing. They have no financial stability to fight these cases. I was very lucky to get legal aid. But some people, they struggle, they lose their families. Do we want to live in a society where you can just walk through Waterloo Station and have your whole life obliterated?
Questions for Mark Pearson?
Hi, I just want to say thank you for coming and sharing your story. It was really excellent to hear. My question would be, have you considered the police ombudsman and making a formal complaint?
I'm waiting to hear from my MP. I'm hoping she'll advise me on that because there are some avenues you can try, but it's a dead end. You just know they're not going to do anything. I think the IPCC is probably the best option to go for, but they're not very neutral.
Hello, Martin. I think you did very, very well with your speech today.
Thank you.
You obviously had some difficulties with it. It's obviously your first time, but you absolutely nailed it. Well done, mate.
Thank you.
My question is this: was what's happened to you really sort of your awakening moment with regards to these issues, or were you much like myself, sort of floating through life completely unaware?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I would use the term epiphany. It was. I had no idea that, I mean, obviously I had vague ideas that things were happening that I wasn't aware of from newspaper stories. But no, I never thought my own country would stand against me in the way that it did. I never thought that I could just be walking home from work and be dragged off a month later, or sorry, 2 months later, by 6 police and stuck in a cell and processed, and my life be forever changed by that.
You talked about the difficulty in suing CPS and maybe going after the police, but under British law, what are your rights to hold your accuser accountable personally?
None whatsoever. She remains anonymous. I can neither confirm nor deny her person. I'm not even allowed to discuss anything that could identify her. All I can say is that she's an actress. So she's totally protected for life, even though I was found not guilty, which to me just doesn't make sense. She can even, as a victim, claim compensation. She can get money.
Mark, thank you for that. 2 questions for you. When you met with the CPS, they've got to meet a 2-part test, as I'm sure you know, in order to prosecute. Number 1, they have to have a reasonable prospect of conviction, and a criminal conviction needs a greater than 90% chance of guilty beyond reasonable doubt, which a barrister friend of mine says is only met about half the time, in fact, in British courts. But that's test number 1. A reasonable prospect for conviction, which they didn't have. They couldn't tick that box in your case. The second is that it has to be in the public interest, and anything a woman alleges against a man now is in the public interest to prosecute under the zero tolerance policies of the Home Office and the CPS. So no doubt in their own minds, they passed that test. So what did they say? Did you ask them about this 2-part test and how they thought they had met it? That's my first question. Okay. The second question is, what about a private prosecution against for false allegation, which you can do?
I can neither confirm nor deny the name of the actress.
That's sort of the first question. When you met the CPS, what did they say?
Sure. So when we spoke to Greg McGill, I said to him, because I'd read the CPS guidelines as well, and it does say there should be a 51 or above chance of a prosecution. And he said, no, you're quite wrong. The term we use is more likely than not. If you think about it, that's just another way of saying the same thing. So I've got a statement here from, this is what Alison Saunders said in May 2015 on a website called the Justice Gap. And the title of the piece was, "I do not want to see new myths replace old myths." Right. The role of the prosecutor is to consider if there is sufficient evidence for a realistic prospect of conviction. In other words, whether we think it is more likely than not that a jury would convict. We always apply this standard, and any case that falls short will not be prosecuted. It's just patently not true in my case. So I asked that of Greg McGill, and he couldn't answer. He said, "I can't answer that." He had nothing to say.
Hi, Mark. Just very quickly, you can make a civil claim for damages against an unnamed person because the police can pass on the documents to them, or the court can, and the court can get around the anonymity. They can name the person, as they have in other cases. You can also jointly sue CPS for damages as well. It's a personal injury case. This is what you've got,
Okay.
and you can do that. Obviously, there's cost implications if you lose. That's the risk, but it's certainly worth doing, and it'd be a high-profile case. And obviously, it could, even if they settled out of court, which almost certainly they would, the publicity, the lead up to the case, as in other cases of miscarriages like this, could be very useful for other men becoming aware of what's going on out there.
Yeah, that would be good to do. But the thing is, I'm not sure if that would stop the CPS doing the same thing again.
If enough people do this.
Yeah, that's why I think a class action would be probably a better thing to try for.
Most guys just run away and hide.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, I'm in talks with various groups that support falsely accused people, and we're trying to get a campaign together. Hopefully, we can get people like Paul Gambaccini to put some input on that. So I'm not sure if that's going to work out, but we'll try. Also, I'm trying to work with the BBC on a panorama programme. It's not definite yet, but it might just go ahead. Well, after what we've just heard today with Cliff, yeah, maybe not, but okay, thank you.
Hi, Mark. Thank
Hello.
you. You started off from the very beginning with complete cooperation with them, with their investigation. I can only imagine that it would be worse on your half if you'd have gone for any of the other options, but having been through it yourself, is cooperation what you'd advise for anyone who happens to go do the same thing?
That's a really difficult question. I mean, I have heard people say it's probably best just not to say anything, because the more you say, the more the police can work out their strategy, and you're just digging a hole for yourself. If you give anything away, they can use that against you. So, but in that situation where it just happens out of the blue, and you know you haven't done anything, your natural instinct is just to cooperate, is just to explain what you've done, and hope that they realise that you haven't done anything. I think at the end of the day, you just have to do what you feel is the right thing. And that's all I can say on that.
Yeah, so just sort of saying, so the CPS used the word victim, you used the words complainant. I'd go for the term liar. I mean, you know, because there's been a lot of these cases, you know, that have come about in the media. So yeah, it would be great to see a class action with, say, you, Ched Evans, with Rolf Harris. You know, he was falsely imprisoned when there was no evidence. Ben Sullivan, Oxford University student who was falsely accused and had his life destroyed.
And the families of all the people that killed themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay Cheshire was the high-profile recent one who did that. And hopefully we can do a protest about this as well. That, you know, we'd like to do that in the autumn, I think. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Hi. I wonder about... it would be nice if the prosecutor apologized to you somehow. So, in the letter, because to heal your person also, because it's so much energy in your life that apologize would help half of it anyway. And I think that you should. What do you think about that? To heal yourself, because you're in a mess and you need some apologize too from the right person.
Yeah, when I went to see Greg McGill, it kind of helped that he made it very clear that he thought it shouldn't have happened, but I knew that he, at the same time, couldn't give a formal apology on behalf of the CPS. In the letter that he sent me prior to the meeting, he did say the CCTV doesn't show that an assault didn't happen. I mean, when I was on trial, the prosecution used the argument that because each image was a fraction of a second, there were many more fractions of seconds where something could have happened, and if you added them all together... So, I'm sure a lot of the CPS people believe that something might have or even did happen, which is crazy. I would have had to have moved faster than is humanly possible. I got a letter from an ex-policeman who said, basically, you were tried for witchcraft.
Yeah.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for being here and for telling your story. The whole time that you were talking, I was just thinking, who are these fucking crazy women? What motivates women to do this? You mentioned financial compensation, but what on earth would motivate a woman to do this? Do you have any insight into that?
I saw a comment by somebody who worked with her. I'm not sure how much I can say here because I'm not even allowed to implicate who she is. I'll say it. Somebody who worked with her said they weren't at all surprised that she'd made this accusation. I'll leave it at that. I think she's delusional. There's something not right there. I don't think it... The fact that she didn't pick me out in an identity parade, I forgot to mention that. She didn't pick me out in an ID parade. As I say, she said the person that assaulted her was 6'2" and had hair. So maybe she was having some sort of fantasy. I don't think anybody could have done what she said because you'd have to crouch down and put your hand down and then up a skirt, which is it's just not possible when she's moving and you're walking past and you're standing at the side. So your guess is as good as mine.
Hi, I just, something is coming to me to put this in some kind of context. I have an awareness in Japan where there's a lot of very crowded underground trains and people get pushed into the trains. And this means we're all scrummed up together and pushing and juggling with each other. And this phenomena of a woman accusing a man of having fondled her or touched her or interfered with her in some way. And in the Japanese culture, this shaming is an appalling situation. And it was described in the article as some enterprising women are now making this a business. And they make an accusation to a man, it's totally false, and he will pay something like £1,000, £2,000 to not have that accusation continued. And she walks off that much richer. So maybe there might be some clue in that.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to wrap up questions there. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Pearson.
Thank you. Thank you.